Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of June 5th, 2023. In accordance with LB 898, please be advised that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the chambers by the northwest door. Please let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief period of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The order of the business of City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda. Under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The council shall require any member of the public desiring to address the council to identify themselves, the name of an organization or group, including an address that you may be representing, unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, organization or group, and whether you are speaking in favor of or opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda nor planned for a future agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please get us started?
Today's agenda for Monday, June 5th, 2023. A reminder, due to the Juneteenth holiday, City Council will not meet on Monday, June 19th of 2023. Next, we will have our Lincoln Police Department Community Member Awards.
Hello, everyone. So I am actually not going to speak. Captain Dale will be speaking on our behalf and telling the stories of each individual that will be recognized today. This is Roy Rivera, my executive assistant. They both have been working very hard on the awards, and we've changed things up a little bit. And we really wanted to recognize those that are very brave, that helped us keep the community safe. Obviously, friends and family are here with you, and that means something to us. And recognizing them in public is a priority for us, because what they did, like we have always said, without the public, we can't solve crime and keep the public safe. So I really appreciate everything that they've done.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here. The first community member that we're going to recognize today is Bailey Falcon. Would Bailey like to step up? Bailey is a manager at a local UPS store. In September, she was contacted by one of her associates who had assisted an elderly customer ship a package to Texas. Bailey investigated the package and recognized several warning flags, suggesting the customer was being victimized through some type of fraud. She took steps to stop the package from being delivered and had it returned to their store. The package was found to contain $30,000 in $100 bills. Bailey contacted LPD, who contacted the gentleman and his family. It was determined he was indeed the victim of an online scam that would have resulted in permanent loss of this money. Her diligence and prompt action made an immeasurable impact on the victim's life. She has earned the Certificate of Merit. The next community member is Kirk Fickar. An officer responded to Walmart regarding a person who was trespassing. The officer attempted to contact the suspect, who also had 5 arrest warrants. He attempted to flee and then fought with the officer on the ground, and the officer's radio microphone ended up pinned underneath him in a position that he couldn't access it to ask for assistance. Kirk Fickar was there shopping at the time. He observed the incident unfolding and recognized that the officer needed help. He assisted the officer and operated the radio microphone so he could summon additional officers. The suspect was taken into custody without significant injury to anyone involved. Now, this is the most interesting part of the story. During the stress of the incident, Kirk didn't realize it, but as it turns out, he's actually cousins with the officer. His actions made a difference and are much appreciated. He has earned the Certificate of Merit.
And we're accepting applications, by the way. It's open right now.
Next up is Sharab Shariati. Sharab was working as a Z-Trip driver when he received an assignment to pick up a letter from a residence and deliver it to FedEx. He recognized the person who was sending the letter, as he had given her a ride to a bank a year earlier to obtain a cashier's check to send to a person claiming to be a family member in need of money. During the previous incident, Shahab had determined that she was being victimized as part of a scam, and he suspected the same was happening again. The victim indeed was being scammed and had agreed to send the money to a stranger who was pressuring her over the phone. Not only was a check returned to her, but Shahab was adamant that the $50 he had been paid to deliver the check would be returned to her as well. He has earned the Certificate of Merit. Next up are Andrew Pfeiffer and Joshua Rotert. Andrew and Joshua were in a parking garage when they were approached by a woman who had been attacked by a man who had also tried to kidnap her. They located the suspect, who was trying to leave in a vehicle. Andrew reached into the suspect's vehicle and took his wallet so that there would be a way to identify him. They then ordered the suspect to get out of the vehicle and sit on the ground, which he did. Police officers arrived moments later and took the suspect into custody. The suspect was from Oklahoma and would have been more difficult to identify had it not been for their courageous actions. They have earned the Meritorious Conduct Award. And last but not least is Patricia Tisdale. This one might get some of us choked up. I know I've read the case file and it may choke me up. Patricia Tisdale's pregnant neighbor was being assaulted by her ex-boyfriend, whom she had a protection order against. Patricia heard the woman screaming for help and went outside to intervene, which allowed the woman and her 3-year-old child to take refuge in Patricia's apartment. The man then turned his aggression toward her, ultimately breaking her jaw and knocking her to the ground. Patricia has since endured numerous surgeries and treatment and has permanent nerve damage in her face. She has also endured later threats to her safety, but never wavered in her witness testimony, which led to the suspect pleading guilty and receiving an 18 to 20-year sentence. Patricia's willingness to put the safety of others before her own is inspiring, to say the least. She has earned the Meritorious Conduct Award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Captain. Thank you to each of you for your contributions to the city of Lincoln. It's days like these that make me so proud to be a Lincolnite and to have all of you living in our community. Thank you again. We sincerely appreciate it. Madam Clerk, let's move forward. If you want to go ahead and head out and take photos, now's a good time to do so. Thank you again. It's a good way to start a meeting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Next on our council agenda, we will go to our consent agenda, sections 1 through 3.
Is there anyone here to speak on these consent agenda items, items 1, 2, and 3? Anyone here to speak on items 1, 2, or 3 on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, moving on.
We can now vote on these items. Item 1A is appointing Sandra Washington to the Public Building Commission for a term to expire August 1st, 2025, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Carlson, sorry. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1B is appointing Tom Beckius to the West Haymarket Joint Public Agency to fill an unexpired 4-term year, introduced by Washington.
So moved?
Second.
Second, Weber. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1C is approving the on-call professional services task order agreement between the city and Alfred Benish and Company for preliminary engineering services for 70th Street and Nebraska Parkway project, introduced by Washington.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Weber. Madam Clerk?
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1D is approving the on-call professional services task order agreement between the City of Lincoln and Alfred Benish and Company for environmental services for the 70th Street and Nebraska Parkway project, introduced by Washington.
So moved?
Second.
Second, Schob.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Seeing none.
Carlson,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1E is distribution of idle funds for the month ending April 30th, 2023, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Schob. Comments? Seeing none.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Items 2A and 2B were introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Washington. Any comments? Seeing none.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. That concludes our consent agenda. We shall move on to Section 4, our public hearing liquor resolutions. I'll be calling item 4A and 4B together. Application of Grandmothers, Inc., doing business as Donna Millie's for a Class I liquor license located at 8150 O Street, and the related manager application of Dean F. Rasmussen.
Hello.
Hello, Dean Rasmussen, 5310 South 84th Street in Omaha. I'm with Donna Millie's.
Very good. Thank you for coming down, Dean. We appreciate
Sure.
it. Can you tell us a little bit about the application that we have before us?
I built both of my Donna Millie's restaurants around 20 years ago here in Lincoln, and it's just been a wonderful city to do business in, first of all. And secondly, it's about time for me to move on. I'm rolling into 79 years old here in another few weeks, so I've found a buyer, and through this transition period, while continue to stay on the liquor licenses until we get everything finalized, and then I'll fade off into the sunset. So, any questions?
Any questions for Dean? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
Is there anyone else here to
Oh,
testify on
my
this item?
apologies. Is there anyone else here to testify on items 4A or 4B? All right. Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
Item 4C is manager application of Stephen L. Petty for Craft Axe Throwing LLC, doing business as Craft Axe Throwing, located at 1821 N Street.
Please come forward. Hello?
Stephen Petty on behalf of Craft Axe Drawing Lincoln, 1821 M Street.
Very good.
We've been operating at this location for 4 years without incident, and I've recently taken over as manager.
Okay, very good. Are there questions for Mr. Petty? All right, very good. Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate you coming down. Is there anyone else here to speak on item 4C? All right, seeing none, let's move to 4D.
Item 4D is application of Sidecar Cider LLC, doing business as Cerro Cider for special designated licenses to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 10 feet by 10 feet at Fallbrook Farmers Market at 600 Fallbrook Boulevard on June 8th and 22nd from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., July 6th and 20th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., August 3rd, 17th, and 31st from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., September 14th and 28th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., and October 12th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Is there anyone here to speak on item 4D? Okay, let's move on.
Item 4E is application of Hy-Vee Inc., doing business as Hy-Vee Food Store for a special designated license to cover an indoor area measuring approximately 377 feet by 297 feet and an outdoor area measuring approximately 131 feet by 85 feet at 6001 Village Drive on June 16th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and June 17th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Is there anyone here to speak on item 4E? Yes, please. Hello. You could just please start with your name and address.
My name is Brittany Hedrick. I'm from Hy-Vee at 6001 Village Drive here in Lincoln, and we are getting a special designated liquor license, hopefully, for an outdoor event that will also include inside the store. It's going to be called the first annual Blues, Brews, and Barbecue event. It will include alcohol sampling, live music, local food trucks, show and shine style event for motorcycles and cars, and yeah.
Very good. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Any
Hopefully.
questions for our applicant? All right. Thank you so much for coming down. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on item 4E? All right. Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
I'll be calling item 4F, application of Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits LLC, doing business as Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits for a special designated license to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 100 feet by 100 feet at 5040 North 27th Street on July 1st from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Hello, I'm Joseph Potter with Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits. It's at 5040 North 27th Street. Our sister company and next door neighbors at Hy-Vee have invited us to put on a beer garden for their annual 4th of July car show, which is on July 1st this year. That's a Saturday, so we will be providing beer service as long as everything gets approved.
Very good. More fun by Hy-Vee. Any questions for our applicant?
Just the explanation answered the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
down.
you.
We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 4F? Okay, very good.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one else coming forward to speak on these items, I'd like to move approval of items 4A through 4F.
Second.
Second, Washington. Any final comments before we move forward? Okay, very good. Madam Clerk?
Carlson.
Yes.
Duden.
Yes.
Schob.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. That concludes our Section 4 Public Hearing Liquor Resolutions. We shall move on to Section 5 Public Hearing Resolutions. Item 5A, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 23004, application of the Urban Development Director to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln Lancaster Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the Antelope Valley Redevelopment Plan to add the 18N Building Redevelopment Project for the construction of a 5-story multi-unit dwelling with on-site parking on property generally located at 18th and N Streets.
Ms. Salem, when you are ready.
I did it faster than I thought I would. Let's see. There we go. Hallie Salem Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street. I am going to try and keep my presentation to 5 minutes, respecting your time. But I'd like to do a little bit more unusual of a presentation, sort of to take a step back, talk a little bit more about the redevelopment process in light of the fact that we have this plan amendment and 2 redevelopment agreements coming forward today just to talk about the process a little bit. So this project is the 18N redevelopment project. And with me today are Adam Criswell from Speedway Properties and Kent Seacrest, developer attorney for the project. And make sure I'm doing this right. Maybe not. Apologies. Okay. So I wanted to go through the redevelopment process with you just a little bit. The project is in the middle of the redevelopment process. When a project gets proposed to us, we analyze it internally, see where it is in the city, see if it has a blight study already adopted for that area. And if it does, we can skip to the next piece of the process, which is the redevelopment plan. If there is already a redevelopment plan that has been adopted for the project, then we can do a project amendment to that redevelopment plan. There's also, if you see in the yellow, those are all of the public reviews for a project. So there's Planning Commission public hearings as well as City Council public hearings for the blight study, for the plan amendment, and for the redevelopment agreement, there is also a City Council public hearing. So we go through this process. In this case, like I said, we already have a blight study that was approved as part of the Antelope Valley redevelopment area. The council found that it was blighted in substandard in July of 2003. State statute requires that an area be designated as blighted and substandard before we can use tax increment financing on a project. The Antelope Valley redevelopment plan was adopted back in 2004 by City Council. This plan was proposed as a three-legged stool, transportation, stormwater, and revitalization to address the issues in that area. State statute requires that project be consistent with the redevelopment plan, and the redevelopment plan proposed addressing traffic issues, flooding issues in the area, both of which were already addressed, as well as disinvestment in the area. And this redevelopment project proposes to address that third leg of the stool. The Antelope Valley redevelopment plan has been amended approximately 26 times over that time period. Projects like Creekside Village, Assurity, 50/50, Antelope Tower, Viet Howe, Telegraph, all of these projects were completed in this redevelopment area, and many others have been also added to the project area and either are underway or about to be started. So this project in this Antelope Valley area, this project is in this red circle right here, 18N, will be project AA of the plan. Similar to other residential redevelopment projects, including Telegraph, Union at Antelope Valley. These improvements proposed will help bridge traditional downtown with what we call East Downtown. And so the 18N redevelopment project, this is the project area for that. The dark outlined area is the project area, and then the red outlined area is the site plan, or the site of the redevelopment project. And this project proposes to construct a 5-story residential building with parking on the first floor and amenity on the rooftop with additional residential units. It also proposes to include 20% of the residential units be affordable. So of the approximately 84 to 88 residential units, somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 18 residential units will be affordable to those with incomes at 60% or below of the area median income. And then the project was also reviewed by the Urban Design Committee. Again, when we look back at that redevelopment project process, one of those public reviews is at a design review body. So Urban Design Committee was the design review body for this project, and it was approved 5-0 with some comments about some adjustments to the parking lot or adding some lighting or things like that. Then the project state statute also requires that the projects be consistent with the long-range plans for the city, in this case, the comprehensive plan. And so this project helps meet that goal of the comprehensive plan to add 5,000 units to the downtown infill, residential infill by 2050. It also is consistent with the 2018 Lincoln Downtown Master Plan. That master plan is a sub-area plan to the comprehensive plan, and it encourages development of vacant or underutilized property and encourages residential at diverse price points. Looking at some other consistencies in terms of the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan and helping meet the needs for affordable units, both in the downtown and city as a whole. And the Climate Action Plan provides walkable housing options, and it's on the N Street cycle track for additional mobility options. The 18N project proposes to do some activities with tax increment financing, site acquisition, demolition and site preparation and grading, environmental remediation, stormwater enhancements, streetscape improvements, street improvements, public utilities, facade enhancements, and energy enhancements. In the actual agreement itself, we might be somewhat less than that because that's a lot to do with a small amount of TIF, but they will probably have more uses than they will have TIF sources for that. And the 18N redevelopment project and any redevelopment project under the community development law requires a cost-benefit analysis. And while we might not be at the point of a redevelopment agreement, we still need to go through the exercise of estimating what we think the TIF will be generated, what TIF will be generated as part of the investment in this project. So the cost-benefit analysis also requires that we look at the impact of the use of TIF and the project on the economy and on other taxing jurisdictions. And what we see with this is that the project proposes to invest approximately $21 million, that the new assessed value is estimated more around $13 million, which is a increment of approximately $12.5 million to $12.6 million, and will generate annually about $250,000. And over the course of 20 years, which is allowable in this area because it was designated as extremely blighted, we'll be able to capture 20 years at increasing valuation every 2 years for approximately $3.5 million in TIF. From this chart, you can see that the existing tax base will remain the same over the course of those 20 years. It will continue to be paid to all the taxing jurisdictions that tax base. And then the increment, approximately $250,000, the taxes on the increment will be paid over the course of those 20 years, incrementally growing, as you can see by the yellow changing shape over the 20 years. And at the end of the 20 years, the bond is retired or sooner if the payments are greater than expected. And then all the taxes get returned to the taxing jurisdictions following that repayment period. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Ms. Salem?
All right.
I don't
Thank
see
you.
any. Thank you very much. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on item 5A? Mr. Seacrest, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Kent Seacrest, representing New Generation Properties, doing business as Speedway Properties. And we are the proposed developer. I have with me Adam Criswell, who's kind of the project lead on this project for Speedway, and then also Christy Joy, who is the architect, who, again, the design got good, very positive comments from the Urban Design Committee, so we're very thrilled. Professor Hallie Salem did a nice job on your course on 101 tax increment financing. It will make sense the more you see this come through. It is confusing, but this is also the major economic tool that we have to rehab the inner cities. So it's a very, very important tool. We just make it real simple. When we do development out the cornfield, it's simpler. When we have old buildings and other things we have to work around and congestion, the costs are just so much higher. This allows us to get the playing field so much more level. So again, I thank Hallie for her good explanation to you. We're talking 5 stories, about 84 to 88 units, 20% AMI to help affordable housing, which has been a goal for Sandra and others on this city council to work so hard on. And I think the other thing I would just point out, the significance of this project is you've seen the Telegraph District take off. Again, Speedway Motors and Nelnet working together as Edo have been game changers down in that neighborhood. But now what we're starting to see is the connectivity. This is a project that's going to be a bridge, help bridge Telegraph District into traditional downtown. And I think you're going to see more and more development in this in-between area, and this is one of the first major projects. And with that, be glad to try to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Mr. Seacrest?
I had one question.
Councilwoman.
Thank you for coming down and explaining, and I really appreciated reading the staff report on this. But I did have one question about street trees. It seemed to be a big topic of conversation with the Urban Design Committee. And I know we work so hard on street tree standards in our community, and we're proud of being a tree city, USA. And so I'm just curious, what are some options for filling in the streetscape there where we no longer will have space for the trees?
You know, one thing I've learned as a lawyer is stay within the legal bounds, and I'm going to ask either Hallie or Christy Joy to come up and address trees because they're more talented.
So one of the things that we have asked is that they go, that any changes to what is being shown as part of the streetscape would go back to Urban Design Committee for review. So far, I think in working with Colin Christopher, and we'll work with the Parks Department to find a higher caliber tree to be installed in the right-of-way. If we're removing trees, we should be replacing with a higher caliber tree, and to try and get a little early boost on the height of that tree. So we can work to try and figure out something that restores the canopy sooner than later.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, I don't like seeing the gaps. You know, it makes it less pleasant for pedestrians.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're selling this as a walkable development, it'd be nice if pedestrians could step outside and not get blasted by huge amounts of sun as they run toward the block that's got the trees.
And I think we looked at making sure there was enough soil volume, whether that's in the end street median or in back of curb. We're trying to find the best location for it.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Seacrest? All right, very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 5A? Anyone else for item 5A? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk?
I'll be calling item 5B, accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city from May 1st through May 15th, 2023.
Is there anyone here to speak on item 5B, claims against the city? Yes, please come forward. If you could just please start with your name and address.
Curtis Leininger, 1925 Sewell Street.
Robert Jones, 1921 Sewell Street.
And Kelly Jones, 1921 Sewell Street.
All right, very good. Are all three of you testifying on the same claim today? Okay, very good.
Well, they were filed as two separate
claims.
claims, but we're together and
Okay,
yeah.
let's take one claimant at a time, if you will.
Sure.
If you want to, feel free to stay up here, though. But if you want to go ahead and start.
Sure. Early March, we have a shared driveway, a shared water line.
Okay.
There was a rupture in the water line. Two separate lines needed to be put in. No problem with that. We understand the cost is all on us. The job was done. We hired TNA Plumbing. Good work. When he got in the midst of the project, the water department was out there and had spray painted on the road where they wanted the two new taps, T1, T2, circled on the road with two new lines, spray painted in white coming to each house. So that's where the plumber dug, right there. As he dug, he discovered that there was an existing repair sleeve there. The hole in the street had to become
19 foot by 11 foot.
Which is drastically larger than any hole in the street needs to be for that job to be done. Tyler Spahn, who had denied our claim, in my opinion, didn't really deal with what I'm calling negligence on, which is the water department and not notifying my plumber of an existing repair sleeve. In fact, spray painting on the road, telling him where to dig, and finding that the job was almost $6,000 more than it needed to be. We split the cost together, so together it would be $2,855 that I paid, my neighbor paid, that we feel is unnecessary based on the water department's negligence in not notifying the plumber of an existing water sleeve that was there, or repair sleeve that was there. So that's really, Rob, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add or?
Yeah, just that I agree with Kurt that we don't see why that should be the homeowner's responsibility to tap onto the city water main, especially when they showed us where they wanted to tap that. There was a repair clamp there, and then also two bell hubs, which are the pipe connections. And so we were each going to get a new tap from the main to our individual houses. And it ended up that the one new tap did go to Kurt's house, and I agreed to accept using the existing tap, the old one, just so we wouldn't have to continue digging, because it would have even been bigger if we each got a new tap.
Very good. Was there anything else that you wanted to add at all?
Other than just, I know he said that once they got to the repair clamp, then they dug further and there was something else. What was the other part?
The bell.
The bell. So there was still, they just kept having to dig bigger and bigger, and it got excessive.
And our issue, again, is we're not arguing any of the ordinance. We understand that this cost is on us. What we're arguing is the negligence of the water department in not notifying our plumber of an existing repair sleeve. Therefore, a job that really should have cost us each about $9,000 apiece turned out to be a job that cost $11,855 apiece. So the plumber is saying, based on his calculations, the size of the hole that it should have been, but then what it grew to because of him being told where to dig of an existing repair sleeve. That is where he calculated the numbers to be $5,710 added expense due to his manpower, the cost of all the backfill, the road grade concrete, the asphalt, and all of that was in the invoice that we gave to the city attorney. So the city attorney in his response saying, ordinance, this is all on you. Again, not arguing that, arguing the negligence of the water department and the added cost that came to us as homeowners.
Very good. Let me ask if any of our council members have questions at this point in time for you. Yes, Councilman Bowers.
Hey, thanks so much for coming down. Okay, so just to make sure that I have this clear in my head, you would have wished that the water department would have let your plumber know that there was a water sleeve,
A repair sleeve
a repaired
on
sleeve
the city main.
on the city main.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would have cut down how big of a hole that your plumber then would have had to have.
He could have excavated in a different part of the street rather than where he was told to.
Gotcha. And he was told to go there by the water department?
Correct.
Okay. And then that is what added on the, according to your plumber's quote, an extra $2,800 each.
Correct. Yes. $2,855. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you so much. I might have questions later, but
Okay.
thanks. I just wanted to make sure I had that.
Yep.
Other questions? Yes, Councilwoman.
I have one other question. I don't assume that either of you are plumbers by training, but I have
am.
sort of a.
Oh, you really?
Actually, I know you're handy, and so that's helpful. But could the job have been done if the hole had been closer? Like, could your plumber have dug a hole someplace else and it'd be less expensive?
No, the main runs right down the middle of the street. And so where the existing main was, he was planning on just moving it down and abandoning the existing one. But since it runs right down the center of the street, it'd be equal distance no matter where he dug. And now I don't know if the water department keeps records of when they do a repair sleeve. So if the water main breaks, they have to put a sleeve over it. And if there's records of that, but like I said before, I don't see why that should be the homeowner's responsibility that you happen to have a repair sleeve right in front of your house when it's time to replace your water main.
And one other thing I would say is that originally it was shared, but we were told once there was that break that we suddenly had to have two separate mains. So that was unexpected.
Which we were fine with.
Yeah, but it was unexpected. So that kind of added to the whole project too. And it did take a month. We had to have we paid $500 to have the street barricades put up, which was also our expense. So it all just kept adding and adding and adding, and we couldn't park on our street. All of our neighbors were inconvenienced. They had to turn water off to the entire block for a while. I mean, it ended up being a lot bigger than we thought. We were getting water out of our neighbors across the street out of an outside tap so we could have water in our house. So this is kind of a minor part of it. That's why we kind of felt like maybe we have a claim.
Very good. Other questions? Yes, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for coming forward, and I'm sure you said this, but I didn't make a note of it. What led to this repair in the first place? How did we get here?
There was a break in the shared water line. So on older neighborhoods like ours, it's common in our neighborhood, there'd be one line coming from the city main, and then when it gets to our driveway, it splits each house. So where it's leaking is right in the middle, so we both are affected by this. And that's when, like Kelly said, that we knew the city would want two individual water lines for each home, which we were fine with. But the unfortunate part is just that it had to be right where the sleeve is at.
So if, as my council friend said, there was a break, you're gonna repair the break, you called a plumber, you got an estimate, you got instructions, and then when you started the work, it was higher than the estimate, right? Because there were some unforeseen circumstances.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just one more question. So did the city or did your plumber tell you where to start digging at or to start repairing?
The water department.
Water department does the tap onto their water main. The plumber does not do that part. So the water department tells the plumber where they want their tap that they will install.
Gotcha.
And then the plumber hooks his piping to that tap to the house.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. So how this will work is that I would presume that a fellow council member will probably have some staff questions, at which point we'll ask some questions. We may have additional questions for you after that, may not. But as we go through, and if we hear other claims from other individuals, we'll go through that process with them as well. And then at the end of the hearing, if any council member chooses to remove your claim from the claims list, they may choose to do that and have a separate hearing on that. If they do not remove your claim, then it is included in the list as it stands right now, and then we will vote on that. So that's a little bit of how it will work. Yes, sir.
If I can just add one thing, because in talking with Tyler Spahn in my follow-up, it was said to me that the water department tried to communicate to him that they weren't indicating where to dig. They were indicating by those T1 and T2 and the two separate lines on the road going to our house that that's where existing water service was. To which I called, that's a lie. We had a shared water line. There would be no T1 and T2 with two separate lines. So I want you to know that, because if you follow up with the water department, they're most likely to say, oh, no, we didn't indicate T1 and T2 with two separate lines. They'll say, we were just saying, we're just out there, just like the gas company and the electric company showing where existing, work is. So I want you to know that you can't say that that's where the existing line was. We had a shared water line. You spray painted T1 and T2 with two separate lines. You were indicating to our plumber that this is where he was to dig, to place the new taps, and to run the lines. And where you told him to dig was an existing repair sleeve. And that couldn't be tapped. And that's why the cost grew to the point that it did. So I just want to say that so we're not circling the wagons coming back later.
Right. Very good. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Would you have any interest?
I would have an interest in speaking with Director Elliott.
Good afternoon, Liz Elliott, Director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities.
Councilwoman?
Well, this, I had to write down this phrase because I always mess it up if I don't. If not, but for. So that is the marker I want to use today, the measuring stick, by wondering about would this, was the increased cost of the project subject to this statement? If not but for the markings on the road, if not but for the direction to dig in a certain place, would this project have been less expensive?
Well, the T1 and T2 were markings not made by our crew. Our crew did come out and marked, like we do with every other spot, just where the actual water main exists. We do not dictate where contractors dig. That is entirely up to the plumbers on where they dig. And in fact, our notes from the technicians that were out there was they were told that both looks like we did 2 marks out there. So the first one, the plumber must not have been able to get out there in time, so we had to go out per one call and do a refresh marking. The second tech that went out there indicated he covered over the marks. There were not T1 or T2 then at that time. He indicates that he did not go and add T1 or T2. He simply marked where the water main was. This, at some point, and I'm not sure if it was prior to the first marking or not, but at some point, the water team did have contact with the homeowners. At that point, they said they wanted 2 new taps and that they would be doing 2 holes. Our team advised actually not, that they would recommend using the current existing line and only 1 new tap because it would save money. It was a copper line and no tap abandonment would be necessary. They also indicated that this main was a 1912 main, so there were a number of fixes over the years, and the more you excavate, the more likely you are to run into a sleeve. And so that was our recommendation, but at no time did we dictate how they do it.
The plumber then did do some additional excavation. They did run into the bell and the sleeve, and I believe they went back to using the existing tap and then one new tap because of those challenges that the plumber ran into. So ultimately, it was not the water department that told or dictated to the plumber where to dig. That was a plumber's decision at that point. That is our standard practice, and that is what happened in this case, according to our water technicians that were out there.
Does the water department keep track of where there are repair sleeves? And what does that do?
Yes, for the most part. This is a 1912 water main, so our records are only so good, probably back to the mid-'80s. Prior to that, not so good. We are cleaning up on this. The interesting part about this is right where the plumber was digging, you could see a prior repair in that area. You could actually see a utility cut in the street. And so an experienced plumber would have just immediately probably recognized, oh, someone was working in this area in the past. Wonder what's going on here. But there was no indication, there was no call to water asking if there was repairs in that area. But the street had a prior utility cut that would have been apparent at the time.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Elliott? Yes, Councilman Shob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Elliott, what the heck is a bell?
I'm not sure I'm the best person that can explain it, but essentially where the pipes can connect, there's a bell right there. Kind of the shape looks like a bell.
Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing church bell and I'm thinking, why is there?
No, it doesn't ring. It doesn't make any noise.
Very good. Councilman Bowers, any questions that you would like to ask? Okay. Any other questions from council members? Okay, very good.
I've got a question.
Yes,
Who was the
Councilman
plumber?
Booth.
TNA Plumbing, I believe.
TNA?
Yeah, TNA.
Anyone else? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Director. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on claims on item 5B?
I would just like to mention that the repair sleeve that is visible, I have a picture of. It is an old water main. I didn't know it was that old. But the repair sleeve is fairly recent because it's wrapped in plastic, and I recognize the repair sleeve. They did not wrap them in plastic prior to 1980s. It has to be after that.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify or about a new or pending claim, item 5B? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk?
We can now vote on these items. I'll call item 5A, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 23004, application of the Urban Development Director to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the Antelope Valley Redevelopment Plan to add the 18N Building Redevelopment Project for the construction of a 5-story multi-unit dwelling with on-site parking on property generally located at 18th and N Streets, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Carlson. Discussion? All right, seeing none.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5B, accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city from May 1st through May 15th, 2023, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Shob. Discussion?
Yes.
Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, my heart goes out to everyone who takes the time to come out and talk and appeal a denied claim. And these are really hard situations to look at. I look at what is our protocol, what's our policy, and then what sets precedent. It's especially difficult when I know the appellants, the people coming forward. This, we have a case of two different stories, one different incident, and this is really difficult. And I am sorry that I won't be supporting your appeal. But thank you for bringing this forward, and it certainly gives me some ideas about other conversations we could have.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other comments? All right. Seeing none. Madam Clerk?
Weber,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Duden,
No.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-1. That concludes section 5 of our agenda. I shall move on to section 6, our public hearing ordinances, second reading, and related resolutions. I'll call items 6A and 6B together. Special permit 1304A, application of Clyde Malone Center to allow for the expansion and reconstruction of a non-conforming structure with associated waivers on the property generally located at 2032 U Street, and the related street and alley vacation 23001, application of Clyde Malone Community Center to vacate a portion of the south side of Vine Street, right of way between Antelope Valley Parkway and North 22nd Street, generally located at 2032 U Street.
Mr. Goodwin?
One, I'm excited to be here. I don't know about you all, but I'm very excited to be here standing before you all to talk about this great project that I am passionate about. I am very passionate about this new project and the new building that we have for the community center. Again, I'm John Goodwin, the Executive Director of the Clyde Malone Community Center, and I'm one of the agencies of the Cultural Centers of Lincoln. We are putting together, we're tearing down our building, which is 14,000 square feet, and we're adding on that same property a 54,000 square foot building to take care of all of our needs. Right now, we are all scattered all over the city with the programming that we are offering. To make this clear, I just want to say that our vision is to create unity and prosperity throughout Lincoln while honoring our African American heritage. The mission is to eliminate multi-generational poverty in Lincoln, and we do that with the holistic programs that we offer the city and for this community. We love the spot. We get a lot of grief of where the spot is right now, but we love that spot because we want to impact that community. We want to impact not just that community, but the community all over of Lincoln, right? North, south, east, and west. And so we're doing that with the programs. We're doing that by offering different experiences so our families can start thinking differently, behaving differently, and having more successful outcomes. We are going to eliminate multi-generational poverty. I love the quote that NASCAR used: in order to become a NASCAR driver, you have to not focus on the wall, because if you focus on the wall, you'll hit the wall. With us, I want them to focus on this new building, to be able to change their mindset, to understand that this is bigger than me. This is bigger than all the people that's involved. This is bigger than everyone else that may donate into, right? This is for the community center for the next 50 to 100 years. This community center is for the city of Lincoln for the next 50 to 100 years. And we're looking to change the trajectory of how families are thinking about themselves, our kids, and the kids that we serve, and the families that we serve in this community. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Goodwin at this point in time? No? Okay.
Be hard to argue.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. We appreciate it. I don't know if Mr. Marvin's planning on coming up or not, but
Well, Dan
tough
Marvin.
act to follow, Director.
It is a tough act to follow, and so I don't know, but I just want to make a clarification. Our department worked through the agreement. We stand ready to sign on this. We're doing this for a dollar amount that would then provide them expansions, and we've seen their plans, which I'm sure they're happy to be able to show down the road, which will be a real exciting building for the community. So,
very good. Any questions for Director Marvin at this point? Yes, Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you. Mr. Marvin, thank you for coming forward. The dollar, I'm assuming, is for the street and alley vacation?
Yes.
And could you, are you prepared to talk a little bit about the special permit, or should I?
I think
go back?
that would be better for Dr. Carey to come.
Then I'd like to speak with Dr. Carey about Dr. Carey, David Carey. When did he become a doctor? But I'd like to speak with the Director of Planning, about the special permit.
And there he is, right on cue.
Yes. I love, we have Professor Salem here today, and now we have Dr. Carey.
Dr. Carey from the Planning Department.
All right. Could you speak a little bit about the special permit, about what's conforming and non-conforming, about the waivers requested?
Sure. So what we have is an existing non-conforming use, and what that really means is that there's been a structure on the site for a long period of time, and it is something that is allowed to stay there. And so what we have here is an updated request to make sure that the new construction for the expansion of the facility is allowed, quote unquote, and it's being specific about what is needed basically for waivers to the front, side, and rear setbacks, and increasing the building height as well, and modifying the parking requirements. So this is a way for us to be flexible for the project, and because it's basically using the site that is already being used. So it's not an impact on the neighborhood, which is one of those factors that we look into for these types of approvals. Okay. And so that's really what we have here with the special permit, in addition to the vacation of the right-of-way.
And with this special permit, will we have to make any other adjustments later on? I mean, that you foresee? I know there's always the unforeseen, but this is a single package, so this is the first and last time we may have to see this. For efficiency's sake, we can just...
Correct. This sets it up so that the project can occur, and we should not have to do anything else with that, unless there is a significant change, which no one is really anticipating.
And during the public hearing at the Planning Commission, was there any opposition to this?
No, this item, because there either had been only support or no comment, it was on the consent agenda, and therefore there was no active hearing at the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for staff? Okay, very good. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on items 6A or 6B? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Matt Langston with Olson, 601 P Street. So I'll just expound on the special permit a little bit. So on this site currently, you can see the north side of that building has kind of an angle shape to it. That's because there's a very large box culvert that traverses the property. So it kind of limits where they can build on that, and that's why we're asking for the reduction in setbacks to 0 along the south and the west side. And with that, to meet building and safety requirements, Parks and Rec is okay with putting a 15-foot non-buildable easement on their site. With the right-of-way vacation, that just simply allows us to expand parking. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Councilman Shob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Langston, would you point to the map? I see brown, I see just grayscale lines, and I'm not fine. Where's the building? Where's the right-of-way vacation?
Oh, sorry. The building is right here.
Help me orient to what I'm, yeah.
Okay, so Vine Street is up here. North is up on the page. And so the building is right down here. And that box culvert
runs under the
right
property.
through the property. Yes.
Okay, thank you, that helps. I was looking at the small, couldn't tell the parking from the building.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So on the current site, we can put 44 parking stalls, and if we do vacate the right-of-way, that adds 31 additional stalls.
And
questions?
One more follow-up, and the building's gonna go from 14 to 54? Is that it?
Right.
Nice. That was more comment than question.
Other questions? Matt, just so my memory is serving me well.
Sure.
We have Trago Park to the south.
Correct, to the south and the west.
Yep, and then we have the channel off to the west as well.
Yes.
Correct. So we don't necessarily, other than Malone Manor to the east, we don't necessarily have any adjacent neighbors, if you
Correct. We will not be impacting any other sites.
Sure. And of course, Malone and Trago Park have a unique relationship with each other existing today. So, very good. Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on items 6A or 6B? All right. Seeing none. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
I'll be calling items 6C and D together. Item 6C is annexation 22009, application of Matadol LLC to annex approximately 0.61 acres, more or less, on property generally located at South 98th and Van Dorn Streets, and the related change of zone 17030E, application of Matadol LLC for a change of zone from AG Agriculture District to R3 Residential PUD, Planned Unit Development, to expand the Wandering Creek PUD for 5.92 acres with the connection of Rattlesnake Road to South 98th Street, with up to 645 multifamily dwellings and 480-person residential healthcare facility, 47,200 square feet of commercial floor area, and 391 dwellings with associated waivers generally located at South 98th and Van Dorn Streets.
Danae, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, members of the City Council. Danae Kalkowski, Seacrest and Kalkowski Law Firm, 1128 Lincoln Mall. Speaking today on behalf of the applicant, Matadol LLC. So I'm going to go back just a little bit since we have new faces on the council and just remind everybody that in 2018, the City Council approved the Wandering Creek PUD. So we're out here on Van Dorn Street. This would be 98th Street, so we're west of 98th and north of Van Dorn. At that time, we came in and showed kind of a master plan for a site plan for over about 250 acres on this site, and then did a grading and drainage plan for the entire site. In 2012, we just asked for the annexation and zoning of the first phase, which was about 70 acres. But the grading and drainage plan did get approved for the entire site. So since 2018, we've come back with multiple amendments to continue to annex and zone additional pieces of the PUD. And so that's what we're here for today too. We've got a new little piece that I've colored in orange for you that we're adding, which will basically allow the development to extend over to 98th Street. We'll have the connection of Rattlesnake Road to 98th Street, which is the southern access there. With the addition of this area, I think we'll be at like 212 acres now for the PUD. The property is, basically the amendment does conform to what was originally planned under the PUD. There's no amendments needed to the grading and drainage plan, so everything conforms to what we planned for the grading and drainage also on the site. Probably the main thing really with the PUD amendment in front of you today is there is a waiver of a subdivision requirement that allows this connection to 98th Street at Rattlesnake Road without 98th Street being paved yet. As most of you are aware, the county's in the process of working on a project to pave 98th Street, which is scheduled for 2024. We have been working with the city and the county to add turn lanes to the county project at Rattlesnake Road and one of the northern intersections there, so that they'll be constructed by the county as part of the project in 2024. You're going to see me back again next week because we're going to have an amendment to the annexation agreement that's going to address those turn lanes. They'll be constructed as permanent improvements, so they'll be funded by the developer up front, but then reimbursed with impact fees collected from the development. So I think all of this is just continuing the growth that's occurring in this area. And the reason for the waiver is basically the Kanoya Nursery opened out here this year. And so by making that connection to 98th Street, it just allows a second connection for that commercial use with the city knowing that the pavement was coming in 2024. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on items 6C and 6D? Hearing them both together. Anyone else here to comment, testify on items 6C or 6D? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on.
I'll be calling item 6E, approving the real estate purchase agreement between the City of Lincoln and Bridges to Hope for the sale of city-owned property generally located at 27th and Layton.
Director Marvin.
Good afternoon, Dan Marvin, Urban Development, 555 South 10th Street. What you have before you is a real estate sales agreement. I know Rhonda Mattingly is here, would like to give her some time to explain what her project is. The area that we're talking about is the northern area of 27th and Layton. It would be if you were going north and you were going to go over the viaduct, it would be on the east side of the viaduct. There's a sliver of a road that goes along there. Originally, when the viaduct went in, the city acquired additional right-of-way. That right-of-way is no longer needed. It was surplus by this body, I think sometime last year. We also outlined zoning contingencies that would be used for that property. And what you have before you is a sales agreement. There's a few conditions in here. One of the conditions is that we are selling this property to them for $1, but in the event that the property is not operated as it's intended, then there would be an additional cost. In other words, can't convert this into a commercial use and acquire it for $1, where there would be a cost of $75,000 in that case. And the site plan is right here. The area that's farthest to the north is close to the tracks, so we typically would not want residential units next to the railroad track. So there is a building that they would have here for some warehouse uses and for office use. And then the village that they would do would be bisected by an LES easement, which is also in this agreement as well. And then the village would be on the north and the south half of this property where I think Rhonda can go into great detail about what the programming would be on this site, but that's the general sales agreement that you have before you. I'll stop there and answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Director Marvin? Okay.
Access to the point then?
The access to the point, let's see if this pops back up.
Sorry
So
about
there's a service road that comes around here, and then there's an alley that would run back behind this property.
Okay.
So generally, I would say most of the service is obtained through the alley access in the back, but obviously the service road runs in front of the property as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions?
Does the service road have a name?
I don't. I always think it was 27th Street, but I don't think it technically is.
I don't have any suggestions. I was just curious.
Okay. Well, maybe Rhonda will have an idea if we can.
Is that part of State Fair Park Drive?
You know, I don't think so because it runs north-south.
North now? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's lower 27th. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm digressing.
I'll research that and I will provide that before your vote next week.
Any other questions for Director Marvin? Very good. Thank you. Rhonda?
Good afternoon. I'm Rhonda Mattingly. I am with Bridges to Hope, 3107 South 6th Street.
Jim Rowalt, President of the Board of Bridges to Hope, same address.
Sandra, would you like us to name it after you?
Nope.
No, thank you. I don't know if it has a name either, but super excited to be here to discuss this. And yes, the front half of those houses and the back half are for those that are recently incarcerated. I've spoken to most of you recently, so you kind of know the programming and everything. Because Bridges to Hope is privately funded, we will be able to extend that if we have available housing to the general homeless population. We're excited about that as well. Opening it up to the community for donations, in-kind, labor, materials, that kind of stuff, so that it lowers the costs of everything. Working with the Mental Health Association, making sure that we have that peer support, that continued support, and remind you that this is not transitional housing. This is permanent supportive housing. So they will be here as long as they are abiding by the agreements that they sign when they become residents. And we have been transparent with the neighborhood association, the civic and business organization, the grain elevator that is there in the vicinity. We have had conversations with the director there so that they know that this is coming to this area. It will be gated, it will be fenced in, so that the kiddos that are in this area will be safe from those grain trucks that are coming in and out of there. We've researched all of this, and we just believe that this is an out-of-the-box solution for the homelessness that we have had and the affordable crisis that we have here in Lincoln. We have support of funders like Cooper Foundation. They're waiting for this approval, and I'm very optimistic on this, so that they can help fund the general operating costs of Bridges to Hope, so that we continue to staff those that we need to oversee this. And the building that will be there on the north side will be Bridges to Hope Donation Center, and then adjacent to that is a community center. When you have these tiny homes from 200 to 500 square foot, you don't have a place to have family gatherings or holiday parties. And so with this community center, they will have a kitchen large enough to have those gatherings. We will have coin-operated laundry facilities so that they don't have to drag their laundry all over the community. They can do it right there. But that also generates revenue for sustainability for the village. And we want to model the council and have a village council consisting of the residents and Bridges to Hope staff and the neighborhood, so that the neighborhood continues to be involved. Once we get the village started with the build, that's when we'll start determining who is going to be the residents. This village council will determine the policies or procedures as we go forward with this. So we are super excited to be moving forward with this process, and we pray that you guys see the benefits of this, and we know that this is the first for Lincoln, but I'm confident it's not going to be the last. I'm confident that this is going to be a contagious, positive solution for the community of Lincoln. So I hope that you guys see it that way as well.
I've been a volunteer at Bridges to Hope Warehouse for 13 years. I'm now president of the board. Prior to that, I was parole, probation, supervisory release officer for 35 years, retired as the chief probation officer for the U.S. courts. Worked with thousands of people on supervision, and housing is such a critical need. It's so hard to find safe and sober living arrangements for people. So I just think Ron has been working on this for at least 5 years, if not longer, and I just think it'll grow and there'll be others coming along, but it's such a critical need. So.
Very good. Rhonda, could you, for folks that are maybe watching here, some of us are familiar with it, but could you talk about what the Village Project is and just generally speaking, the hopes and goals of the project?
So the biggest obstacle that we see in working with men and women who are released from incarceration is finding housing that is affordable once they're released. With a record, it's very difficult. And so our houses will be between 200 and 500 square foot. And we will charge them $1 per square foot. And we will be able to work with parole and probation or mental health association. Like I said, we're partnering really closely with them. So once they're finished through mental health association, Hanu House, say, they're looking for permanent housing, someplace to go. So they will be able to reside in this village permanently. They're looking for a house anywhere in anybody's neighborhood. So this village will be an option for them to come and stay. We're also in discussions with Director Jeffries at the Department of Corrections. We're trying to figure out a way that we can work with those that are incarcerated as far as the construction, trying to get the build inside, providing a lucrative skill for those that are incarcerated, that when they get out, they can go on to have construction degrees, possibly live in one of those homes. And then those that are on work release can come out to the property and actually help with the finish work for those houses. So the project itself is going to be a collaborative effort with the entire community. We also have a commitment from White Castle Roofing to donate for the roofs for these houses. So if we have 20 houses, we can use that commitment as leverage to go to other roofing companies and other electrical companies and plumbing companies and say, you know, this is a community effort. These guys are committing to doing this. How about you commit to some of it as well? So the whole entire project, again, involves the entire community, but it benefits not only those that are incarcerated. Because Bridges to Hope is privately funded, as I said, if we have available houses, we're not going to let them sit empty. If there's a homeless veteran, we can put them in one of our houses. Does that help answer?
It does, it does. And Councilman Shob, was that, I apologize.
No, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Beckius. My question was going to be phrased, so what are you doing? You're building houses for people who in need to fill a gap in our community.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Affordable housing for the homeless and previously incarcerated.
Thank you. Transition. That was it. We were just discussing.
Sorry.
No, the public needs to know, and I think it's a good idea. Ron and I have talked before, and I'm all on board with the project. I just want everyone else to know what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Yes, Councilman Bowers.
You all have a great reputation, both personally as a professional, but then also your organization has a great reputation. I am super honored that this is going to be within District 1 on the City Council. So, no, I'm super excited for it. I think that you're absolutely right. This is an out of the box way of thinking of meeting some of our needs, and you've been working on this for years. So, really, kudos to you. I mean, because you've been working on this since before the pandemic started, and you kept pushing through. So, I'm proud of you. The council's proud of you, I assume. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I'm proud of you, and you should be really proud of yourself. So good job, seriously.
Thank you. It's been a big team effort, definitely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify on item 6E?
My name is Destiny Camuso. I'm the CARES Program Coordinator for MHA Nebraska, 1645 N Street. Today I'm here representing the Mental Health Association of Nebraska, and we would like to express our full support for Bridges to Hope's Tiny Home Project. As someone who's seen firsthand the struggles that individuals face when they do not have access to safe and affordable housing, I believe that this project is essential to our community. Bridges to Hope has a proven track record of providing important assistance to those who are most in need in our community, including the homeless population, veterans, individuals being released from incarceration, domestic violence survivors, and those transitioning out of halfway houses or other transitional living situations. The Tiny Home Project will provide individuals with a safe, permanent, and stable housing option, which is critical for their success. In 2007, I was brand new in recovery. I was 21 years old and had no family support and was new on drug court and on a program called Behavioral Health Jail Diversion. I got my very first apartment but had no money or means to buy anything to put in my apartment. I was directed to Bridges to Hope, and I was able to go through and pick out furniture, dishes, and anything else I needed to be able to feel comfortable in my own space. I remember how important that was for me, and all these years later getting to work alongside Bridges to Hope and Rhonda has furthered my appreciation and respect for their work. As a representative of the Mental Health Association of Nebraska, we fully support this organization's efforts, and we are committed to providing services and support to those residing in the tiny homes. Mental health is a critical component of one's ability to be successful, and MHA Nebraska is pleased to assist in making sure those residing in the tiny homes have access to appropriate and beneficial support services. Mental health is a vital component to overall well-being, and I'm confident that the resources and supports that Bridges to Hope and the Mental Health Association of Nebraska will provide will make a significant impact on the lives of those in need. Today, I'm asking you to support the work Bridges to Hope is doing and plans to do, and we encourage those in the community to do the same. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify on item 6E? Yes. Please come on down.
And of course I didn't print, so I'm kind of going to read a little synopsis
fine.
off my phone, okay?
If you could just start with your name. and
Yeah,
address,
my name's
please.
Kayla, Kayla, last name Toby, Tobey, and I've lived in Lincoln here since 2020. I am from western Nebraska, so I was born and raised in North Platte. I spent about 10 years in Hastings. And then during COVID, I ended up here in the People's City Mission. I lost my home that I owned in Hastings. And I lived at the People's City Mission for about 7 months. I found out about this little house village that Bridges to Hope was going to, that are proposing. And I do a lot of advocacy work for people that are changing their life. I have been on both sides of the coin. I have been to federal prison. I spent almost 6 years there, and I am a changed person, and now I'm a productive member of society. I have 2 children, and I do a lot of advocacy work. I talk about homelessness. I talk about things such as domestic violence. I testified at the legislature this year. I'm just finding that I have a voice for a reason. And so I moved to Lincoln, and it was really, really hard for me to find a house. You think that this big city, it would be the city of second chances, but I ran into a really big problem. And in Hastings in North Platte, they kind of it was old-fashioned. You could fill out that application and you could take it to that person, and I could talk to them, and I could say, hey, I promise I'll pay the rent, and they'd give me a chance. And then you get to Lincoln, and it's like, you have to have a credit score of this, you can't have a felony, signed, sealed in blood, and you need to have a social security number, and you can't ever be a felon, and my felonies are 20 years old. And so it's like, by the time I would fill out the application, and I didn't really have the money for an application fee because I have 2 children, and I take care of them on my own, and so I'd fill out the application fee, and then they saw that I had a felony, so by the time I tried to find a house, I was kicked out of 75% of the housing market right away. And so the 25% of the housing market that I was able to maybe live in Lincoln was like really, really yucky, and they were houses that weren't clean. They were landlords that weren't taking care of their houses. They weren't even areas where I wanted to raise my 2 children, to be honest. And I have really good landlord references from the places that I have come before. And did I tell you my felony is almost 20 years old, but they wouldn't even look at how long it had been? And so I just wanted to stand here today and say that this opportunity for them to be able to have, this little village that, these people are going to be able to get references again. They're going to be able to live there with their children. It's going to be safe. If I would have come to Lincoln and been able to give an opportunity to put references down on an application, if I would have been able to, have an opportunity to be in this type of community and maybe even be like, a member of, some sort of community like this, it would have been awesome. But I got into a really terrible apartment and then had to find another apartment. And so things didn't go for me very well when I came to Lincoln. I really wasn't given a second chance here. And then I found the right people, and so now I'm finding my way and I'm getting community involvement and I'm finding the right resources and I have a voice. But you have to be able to prove yourself. And I think with this little tiny village, the way the way that they're making it is that people can prove that they're a changed person.
1 minute.
So, anyways, I just wanted to share that people can change, and I think this is an awesome opportunity for them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on item 6E? Anyone here to testify on item 6E? Okay, let's move on to 6F.
I'll be calling items 6F, 6G, and 6H together. Item 6F is approving the 27th and Star redevelopment agreement between the city and Marshall Development LLC relating to the redevelopment of the property generally located at the southwest corner of 27th and Star Street. The related item of amending the fiscal year 2022-23 CIP to authorize and appropriate $446,658 in TIF funds for the 27th and Star Streets redevelopment project, and the related tax allocation bonds for the 27th and Star Street redevelopment project in the amount not to exceed $446,658 in tax increment financing.
Director Marvin.
Good afternoon, Dan Marvin, Urban Development, 555 South 10th. I'm going to start by just giving you a little trip down memory lane on North 27th Street. And this is 1997. So the subject property that's before you is this area through here. But in 1997, it was a car lot, a vacant lot, and a couple of homes that were beyond repair, let's put it that way. So sometime after that point, this is the parking lot, or the used car lot. The only thing that was left in here in 2007 was this building. It had been closed, and then there was buildings back behind there. Subsequent to that, the city, sometime around 2012, acquired the property and cleared the land for development. And this area would have originally been a B zone, and then there would have been R zones behind it. So what you have before you is a area, and I think Hallie went through and explained what the hatched lines area indicate areas where tax increment financing dollars could go. This would be the project site, some of the areas that included, in particular, a little, I think that would be a stretch to call it a pocket park, but for lack of a better term, there's a little park on the corner of 27th and Holdridge. That would be included in this. The right-of-way along 27th Street, and this would be the areas where the tax increment finance dollars can be spent. And what you have is a breakdown, as Hallie talked about earlier. So you have the plan amendment. This is the redevelopment agreement. So this gets to the nuts and bolts of where the dollars get distributed. There's a city administrative fee for drafting the documents. There's a bond counsel fee. You have to go and get a bond counsel ordinance. Park improvements, those would be the dollars that would go to that little pocket park that I pointed out. And then site acquisition and right-of-way improvements would be the other place where the dollars for the tax increment finance would be going. So what you will hopefully see is a triplex building that would be built with the neighbors, the existing residential to the east, and then a 12-plex here for a total of 15 units. And the agreement asks that they provide 20% of the 15 units as affordable, so that would be the 3 units that would be affordable in this area. There would be some trees that would be planted along 27th Street to kind of soften up that corridor. The site plan that you'd see here again, 27th Street, Star Street, the triplex. There's a buffer between the triplex and the neighbor next door, a little bit of separation, the alley in the back, and then the 12-plex that would be next to the building. Again, some additional renderings of what they would do. This would be the 27th Street side, so there is right-of-way that can afford some additional plantings of some trees along that area, and I know the developer has an interest in doing that as well. So I'll stop there. I know with me today is Ann Post, the developer's attorney, and I think she can answer questions as well, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Yes,
question.
Councilman Duden.
Dan, are there any 12 plexes on 27th Street or any apartment complexes, period?
Yes, there are a number of apartment buildings probably farther south of there that you will see in different areas. But I think that's a good question. 27th Street would have developed, it's a classic kind of neighborhood where the main arterial would have had B zones, as you would have seen in
Correction, yeah,
1997.
all commercial, yeah.
Yeah, where you're going to have commercial, like the used car lot that would have been there originally. But I think farther south from there, you will see that there are some flats apartments that are down there. I don't know if they're 12-plex, but there are a few other locations where there's apartments along there.
Councilman, any other questions? Very good. Anyone else?
The 20,000 for parks improvement or park in quotes improvement, is that landscaping then?
So
I assume, or is that a?
It is
handout?
landscaping. What the BID, the Business Improvement District for 27th Street, does not cover that particular park. So I think that's an obligation of Parks and Rec. And what has happened is there have been some unruly bushes and other things that have grown up there. So I think the idea is to take a look-see at that, so that, number one, the police department is catty-corner from that, and there's been some concerns that people could hide in there and that. So one of it would be to clean that up, but also to create an environment that looks better, but also has lower maintenance. And we've had conversations with the Parks Department, and we think we can come back with some pavers and some improvements to that area, so that the corner looks good and it doesn't have quite the maintenance that it presently has.
Councilman Carlson, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Director Marvin. Ms. Post.
Good evening. Well, afternoon. It's still afternoon. Good afternoon.
We're close.
My name is Ann Post. I'm an attorney with Rembolt Ludke Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of the developer, Marshall Development, LLC. This developer is part of the development group that has also done projects, very similar projects at 25th and Vine and also 23rd and Y. Their specialization is really finding underutilized areas, infill areas to acquire and assemble properties, and then to be able to develop these type of small to medium-sized multifamily developments. So previous projects, as I mentioned, at 25th and Vine and 23rd and Y, involved two multifamily buildings, about 18 units each, so comparably smaller scale. So when this site came to the developer's attention, it fit a lot of the criteria that they often look for this type of development. This is just an aerial, but a few things to note is that this is within a 15-minute walk of 5 different parks. That includes B. Richmond Park, which is a small, we'll call it a pocket park, of course. It's located adjacent to 2 different transit lines. That's on the 27th Street here and also on Holdridge, that's up here. And then it's currently vacant, but it is, the future land use plan shows it for increased, has it identified for increased density. And so the one difference with this, well, there's a few differences with this property. One is that it's currently vacant. That's where what you'll see in this agreement, different from most other projects, is that we don't have any site preparation costs allocated. That's why, that's because it's currently vacant. That's also why your site acquisition costs are higher, because someone has already gone through and removed all of those buildings and incurred all of those costs. Therefore, we had to pay more to acquire the site from a private developer, who we acquired that from. The next difference that we have with this project to a few of the previous projects is that, like I mentioned, previous projects, we've built 2 multifamily apartment buildings. For this project, after doing our due diligence, it was determined that just wouldn't be appropriate for the site. That's where this is the proposed elevation. This is the same one Director Marvin showed. As you see, it was scaled back. So that is the 1 12-unit apartment building. Those are 3-bedroom units, so 12 3-bedroom units there, and then 3-plex townhomes next to it. So what that does is that really takes that higher density of the 12-unit building, then it steps that down as you get closer to the single-family housing. And then there is that normally in the R6 zoning district, you'd have a 5-foot setbacks to single-family homes. In this case, there's going to be a 15-foot setback to those single-family homes. All right, next, this project, what you'll also notice here is that there are no driveways. This is Star Street, there are no driveways. This project takes access from the alley. So that's why also as a part of this redevelopment agreement is the agreement to pave the alley that we're taking access from, that takes that traffic off of Star Street, out of that residential street, and moves it back to that improved alley. This set project also will meet all parking ratios. A few other additional factors about this project, as Director Marvin indicated, this redevelopment agreement includes 3 affordable housing units. That's 20%. 20% will be reserved for people making 60% of the area median income, and that's for the 20-year period of this redevelopment agreement. To Councilperson Washington's comments, there is also the agreement the developer will be planting trees both along Star Street and then also along 27th Street. That actually was a unique scenario. If we'll go back to the site plan, you'll notice that the right-of-way along 27th Street, there's actually a slip of right-of-way that's owned by the city. So we had to work with the city, and we'll actually be planting the trees in the right-of-way owned by the city, but to create that green canopy that Lincoln is known for, and that creates that more pedestrian-friendly environment. And then finally, there is that commitment to $20,000 improvements to B. Richmond Park. That is, again, this park, very close, very accessible to the residents. And so with that, we would ask your support for this agreement, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Any questions for Ms. Post?
All right, thank you very much. Yes?
Councilwoman Washington.
I just have, I think, a simple question.
Okay.
And I'll turn my microphone on. It makes it easier. I have, I think, a simple question and then a comment. I'll start with a comment. It's a little scary that we were having a mind meld, but thank you very much on the street trees. And then on the development agreement you have there with your client, I know that the neighborhood association that I visited with here was really concerned because they felt like there was a previous development agreement. And I would like you to explain what happened with the previous development agreement when your client came in.
Certainly. That was the Clinton Neighborhood Association. I will note we did meet with and attend a meeting of the Clinton Neighborhood Association in this process. We were able to listen to their concerns, one of which being that Lincoln has a real housing affordability issue, as does most of the country, and that 3 units is a drop in the bucket for the 17,000 units needed, which we certainly appreciate, but 3 units is what we can contribute with this project and is also a significant investment for this developer. And so more than that, the history of this property was that when it came to my client's attention was that it was owned by a previous developer who had already rezoned it to R6 and had an agreement in place to zone it to develop townhomes on the property. Now townhomes, of course, are going to be lower density than those 12-unit apartment buildings and the 3 row homes or townhomes that we're doing on this project. when Mr. Byrd and Marshall Development and LA Real Estate, there's a few entities involved there, all related, but acquired this property. When looking at it and doing the due diligence for the property, it was that the numbers, this project wouldn't be feasible with just the row homes that were there. With the cost to acquire the property, with the cost to develop the property, it wasn't going to be as feasible in the way that it is today with the row homes. And that's where, upon acquisition, we started this process to get all the approvals in place to have the increased density. But that's also why this project doesn't look the same as the previous projects. That's why there are the 3 row homes next to the 12-unit building, as opposed to this developer's more traditional style of having 2 18-unit apartment buildings. So it was that need to make the project work, along with trying to be more sensitive to the neighborhood. Well, of course, we couldn't do that perfectly, but we did change the typical development project to better accommodate this neighborhood.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Post? Ms. Post, before you go, I just wanted to make one quick comment to you and your developer, Mr. Byrd. I would like to note that we don't often see a lot of 3-bedroom units come in especially at the percentages that we're seeing here of 3-bedroom units. And for a lot of families in the city of Lincoln, to get 3-bedroom units can be a difficult challenge, especially with new construction. And I just wanted to say I really appreciate those 3-bedroom units that can supply and accommodate families in a space, maybe even especially larger families. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. It's something that's uncommon in this day and age with these new developments. So thank you.
Appreciate it. That also reminds me Mr. Byrd is in the back of the room. He's happy to let me testify, but did want to be back in the back of the room to make sure to hear your comments and support the project. So,
right.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ms. Post. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who is interested in testifying on items 6F, 6G, or 6H? Anyone else here to testify on items 6F, 6G, or 6H? All right, very good. Let's move on. Madam Clerk, if you could call items 6I, 6J, and 6K. I would just like to note that Vice Chair Washington will be taking over this portion of the meeting, and I will excuse myself.
If needed, I know the gavel's within reaching distance. Thank you.
Item 6I is approving the Northwest 48th and Holdridge redevelopment agreement between the city and Northwest 48th Apartments LLC relating to the redevelopment of the property generally located at Northwest 48th and Holdridge Streets and the related fiscal year 22-23 CIP to authorize and appropriate $9,612,000 in TIF funds for the Northwest 48th and Holdridge redevelopment project and the related tax allocation bonds for the Northwest 48th and Holdridge redevelopment project in an amount not to exceed $9,612,000.
Good afternoon, Dan Marvin, Urban Development, 555 South 10th Street. I think what will pop up on the screen here is I'll give you a little bit of history. Again, this area of Northwest 48th Street, we took through as a blight-only study probably in 2021. The state was providing a $5,000 tax credit in blighted areas and extremely blighted areas for owner-occupied homeowners, and we wanted to be able to take advantage of that tax credit from the state. And we have been seeing annually somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 within all the areas that we've extremely blighted. We've seen homeowners purchase homes in those extremely blighted areas in the neighborhood of 150 or so people a year. So I think it was a worthwhile endeavor to do that. This area, though, is property that lies within that blighted area. So we did bring forward a redevelopment area for Northwest 48th Street. And I'd say some of the challenges that you'll hear is a need for grocery and other kind of amenities and shopping that's up in that area. And then the age of some of the housing stock is older because that was part of the old air base. So those were things that we spoke to in the redevelopment area, which this project would be the first project within that redevelopment area. So this was brought forward in February of 2023, and then this body in March, when they got the redevelopment plan, then this became the first redevelopment plan that was adopted within that area. So what I want to try to go through again, like I did in the previous example, is the hashed area is again the area within the blighted areas. One of the things we paid particular attention to was the Northwest 48th Street corridor. We had conversations with the planning department. Is there a bike connector through here? We also wanted to be able to create a green connector. Obviously, the new high school is over here, so we want to be able to create connectivity for kids that would be living on this side of the street to be able to cross safely to get over to the new high school. I think there's a light here, so that's not an issue. They will be able to get across a light, but we did look into the connectivity issues for kids getting across over to the high school. Again, this is just a different rendering. You can kind of see the different parking areas, few L-shaped buildings for the apartments, and I think the number is 286, 289. Correct. So it's a rather large apartment complex, and they are holding to the 20% affordable number. So we're talking roughly, if my math holds, 58. Thank you, Derek. And this has gone through urban design review, and then some of the elements of this were already pre-planned. This particular development was long envisioned by the planning department, and the roof line here, flat roofs towards the street. The neighbors years ago asked for pitched roofs next to their neighborhood, so this building will have pitched roofs there. This would be, I believe this is Holdridge and Northwest 48th Street. And
that's the final that was approved by urban design, the most recent picture.
Okay. Couldn't tell a lot of difference, so
You're fine.
So we'll just get to the three takeaways that I would ask you to think about on this project that I think are big wins for the city of Lincoln. Last week, what was the press release on? It was press release that we're going to have water restrictions. This particular project will use cisterns and capture the water that comes off of the parking garage, send it into underground storage containers, and then they will be able to use that water to water the grass on their property. And I think that's a very unique water conservation technology that they're going to explore, and I don't think that, certainly it's not very common in Lincoln to have that, and certainly not at this scale it's not very common. So I think they have the technology to be able to do this. But I think that's one takeaway. Mm-hmm. The second takeaway is the solar panels that they'll be using on this particular project. They won't have solar for every apartment, but they should be able to provide a significant amount of solar energy. Because of the way the solar is captured, it's captured per apartment unit. Each individual apartment has its own meter, and so those apartments that are hooked to solar on top of there, the meters can run backwards and then forwards when it's nighttime. But the individual apartments will have their own solar energy to reduce the energy consumption for those units. And then the third one that I spoke of earlier is the housing affordability. A lot of times we talk about what housing affordability is what we did with our Affordable Housing Action Plan was peg for rental properties a 60% area median income, which means that if the area median income, if 100% of area median income is $80,000, then 60% of $80,000 would be $48,000. Then there's a cost burden number on that $48,000, which is 30%, that the rents for rent and utility costs cannot exceed 30%, so that those individuals are not cost burdened. So they constrain their rents for a 20-year period to an affordable rental, as we've defined it in the action plan, for 20% of their units. And I think that's a commendable goal, because the way this is being done, most of the projects that we'll bring forward to you, even 18th N, 48th and Madison, which you'll be seeing later, they have some additional dollars to help make the project happen at those reduced rental rates. This particular project is doing it basically with the incentive of tax increment finance alone, and that's a laudable goal that they've been able to do. So we support the project, we've worked with them, and I'm sure Derek has a few things that I missed in my opening here, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions? All right, then.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Members of the council, Derek Zimmerman with Rev Development, the developer for the project, 1000 O Street, Suite 102. And I just want to echo a lot of Dan's comments. We're very excited to move forward with this. There's a lot of aspects of this project that may be different from some other tax increment financing projects, but we saw some opportunities. It frankly kind of started with the flat roof component. The flat roof components were kind of a creature of being near the airport, and so you're somewhat height limited in what you can do. And we saw with our tax increment financing, with the increment that was going to be created, the ability to do some of these energy efficiency and green components that other projects have not done up to this point. There are some challenges with it. That's why we're doing a dollar dedication amount. The fact of the matter is we have to work with LES and try to do as many units as possible. There's no reason for us to only try to do a few. We want to do as many units to provide that as possible, but we do have to work through with LES on what that process looks like. It's an engineering thing that goes way beyond me, and so those discussions are happening, and so we look forward to working with them further. And then the irrigation component that Dan mentioned really is it goes along with the stormwater detention system, but there is quite a bit of additional cost associated with capturing it and keeping it there. If there is an overflow, it does run off just like any other traditional stormwater system would operate. And then the affordable component. I mean, we're really excited to bring these number of units online in accordance with city policy. And it's not just there is the family component as well, but there also is the workforce development component. That's why there are some studio apartments that are associated with this development, adding that to the area we're excited about as well. And I do want to just kind of take a moment to thank urban development staff, Dan Marvin, Ernie Castillo, Jennifer Hyatt, and Christine Idle for working with us on scheduling. When you have a developer team and city staff that gets to meet, that's a challenge. Also, Abby Luttrell with the city attorney's office and Colin Christopher with the planning department. We appreciate their efforts in getting this through in a timely manner for us so we can still move forward hopefully this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions that members of the council may have.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have one. How much does the solar and this water retention, how much does that add to the cost of the project?
The solar, the solar is approximately 3.7 million, and that's for anything associated with it. So not just the solar panels themselves.
The electrical components.
Electrical components, you have to take into account the structural component on the roof. I don't think that's a huge number, but you want to make sure that it doesn't fall through.
Right.
And then the stormwater system, that was combined with overall energy efficiency components that we're doing. I don't have that exact number. I want to say it's around the $400,000 to $500,000 range. But that number that we put into the redevelopment agreement includes a lot of other energy efficiency items that are certified by the project architect or engineer, things like smart thermostat systems, low-flow water heads, heat pumps, all the things that we're doing as part of our project to increase the efficiency. So, but I think that's a rough calculation of where we're at this point.
Thank you.
If no one else has any questions, I had a couple. I think I made the assumption that with some of the solar energy stuff that you were doing, commendable, that would go to the developer on sort of like site lighting and things like that. And so I'm curious about it going to individual apartments. And I think you mentioned, or Dan mentioned, that it won't be every unit. And I was curious if some of those solar apartments, I'm going to just call them solar apartments, would be some of the affordable units.
So to answer your first question about, I think, yes, the plan is to have things like lighting go to, I mean, we would just have a separate meter that would go for those common items, yes. And then, I mean, you ask a very good question on the second one, and to be honest, it's not something we've even thought about or considered. It's going to be non-discriminatory. I mean, it's all going to be the same.
Yeah, it's very exciting to think that you could keep your utilities down, because I think when we always think about rents when we think about affordability, and it's we don't think about the utilities as much, but they also are impacting because it's every month too. But really everything that you're doing falls in line with the climate strategy plan that the City of Lincoln's working on, and I appreciate that. And certainly given the fact that we are doing voluntary water conservation efforts now, the idea of being able to water off of the site itself instead of through the potable system, much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Is anyone here to testify on this item, on these three items? Anyone to test? Oh. Come on down, Mr. Schmeling.
Richard Halverson, 6311 Inverness Road. I'm not here to testify against the project. I'm here to testify against the TIF. Yeah, we're going to give them, $1.5 million to buy the site, and also they mentioned another couple $1 million for electrical improvements, which they didn't really bring out. They mentioned the solar, but I saw on the slide there's another couple $1 million for electrical efficiencies, which again wasn't brought out. But again, it's a TIF. I realize this is money they have to pay back eventually, but it's money they would have to pay back anyway. They'd have to pay, and the thing, TIF is supposed to be for projects that won't get done. It's not for TIF. And 9 out of 10 projects would probably get done, even if there wasn't TIF. True, they might not have the extra amenities. They might not have solar panels. They may not have whatever these other electrical improvements are. They might not have stormwater detention. Some of the little extras they may not have, but I think the project will go ahead even without TIF. And again, I'm against giving aid to projects that don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halverson. Anyone else to speak on the project? Anyone else? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, you may move us forward. And would someone open? Sure. Bring Councilman Beckius back.
Okay, that concludes Section 6 of our agenda. We shall move on to Section 7, ordinances, third reading and related resolutions. I'll be calling item 7A, change of zone 23022, request of Christ United Methodist Church for a change of zone from R6 residential to R6 residential with landmark overlay on the property generally located at 1333 North 33rd Street, introduced by Shob.
So moved. Come on, folks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Weber. Discussion? Seeing none. Call the roll.
Shob.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Duden.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7B is change of zone 08041E, application of Clark and Anderson to amend the Pine Woods Plan Unit Development to amend signs and use regulations on property generally located at South 70th Street and Pine Lake Road, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber, discussion?
Getting better. We're getting better.
Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington.
Yes.
Student.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7C is text amendment 23007, request of Clark and Anderson to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Section 27.62.120, Commercial Recreation and Entertainment Facilities Use Group, to remove the required 100-foot setback for a social hall when it is located next to a golf course or biker trail in a residential district, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Washington, discussion?
The way we do it.
Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Student.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 70 is text amendment 23004, request of Centerpoint to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Section 27.63.400, historic preservation, to allow greater flexibility for signage on historic properties in residential districts and to remove language made irrelevant under Section 27.69160, special permitted uses, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber, discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Student.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7E is special permit 17030C, application of Centerpoint to amend their existing special permit to allow an increase in signs allowed in residential districts on property generally located at 2202 South 11th Street, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber, discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Student.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. That concludes Section 7 of our agenda. Section 8 is resolutions. First readings are items 8A through 8E. Section 9 of our agenda is ordinances. First reading. Related resolutions are items 9A through 9E. Our pending list is sections 10, items 10A through 10D.
I would entertain a motion.
Ms. Washington usually gets this one.
Seeing that we're at the end of the agenda, I motion adjournment.
Second, the motion to adjourn.
Second, Shob, please call the roll.
Duden.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Shob.
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We are adjourned.